The grand hall of the Galactic Council echoed with laughter. Not the kind, welcoming sort, but the cruel kind that cuts deep into one's pride. Captain James Reeves stood perfectly still at the center of the circular chamber, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. He had expected this reaction, but expecting something doesn't make it hurt any less. A seventh-dimensional drive. The Grand Speaker's voice boomed through the chamber. The tall, silvery being leaned forward in its floating chair, multiple eyes blinking in apparent amusement. Humans truly never cease to entertain us with their imagination. More laughter followed. The chamber's walls, made of living crystal that changed colors with the council's mood, had turned a deep purple, the color of amusement tinged with contempt. Reed took a deep breath. At 45 years old, he had faced his share of mockery since humanity joined the galactic community 30 years ago. Earth had been relegated to the outer rim, treated like a backwater planet full of primitive beings who had barely mastered faster-than-light travel. The demonstration will take place in 14 standard days. Reed continued, his voice steady. Earth extends an invitation to all council members to witness the maiden voyage of the HFY Archimedes. The Ancient Ones, sitting in their elevated platforms, stirred. These beings had mastered space travel when Earth was still cooling from its formation. One of them, a mass of shifting geometric patterns, moved closer. "We have existed for millions of your years," it said, its universal translator giving its words a metallic ring. "We have seen civilizations rise and fall. We have mapped dimensions 1 through 6. And you claim that your species, barely out of its planetary cradle, has achieved what we could not." Reed allowed himself a small smile. "We don't claim anything. We invite you to observe." The Grand Speaker raised a limb for silence. "Very well, Captain Reed. The Council will send observers. But know this, if this is some attempt to gain status through false claims, the consequences will be severe." Reed nodded once. As he turned to leave, he caught snippets of conversations. "Did you hear? The primitives think they can bend dimensions. Perhaps they confused a new propulsion system with dimensional travel. How entertaining these humans are." The walk back to his ship felt longer than usual. Reed's boots clicked against the polished floor of the space station, each step echoing in the nearly empty corridor. Most advanced species use teleportation for internal station travel, but humans weren't permitted access to such technology, another reminder of their place in the galactic hierarchy. Inside his small ship, Reed finally allowed his shoulders to slump. He reached for the communication panel and pressed his palm against it. "Reed to Lunar Base. Connect me to Dr. Porter." After a moment, a holographic screen flickered to life. Dr. Emma Porter's face appeared, her gray eyes intense with concentration. Behind her, complex equations floated in the air, glowing with a soft blue light. "How did it go?" she asked, though her expression suggested she already knew. "Exactly as we expected. They'll be there to watch." Emma's face broke into a grin. "Perfect. The Archimedes is ready. Final tests completed an hour ago. The 7D drive is performing beyond our highest expectations." Reed leaned back in his chair. "They think we're fools, Emma. The Ancient Ones themselves said they've only mapped up to the 6th dimension." "That's exactly why we succeeded where they failed," Emma replied, pushing a floating equation aside. "They mapped the dimensions. We learned to swim in them. They're so caught up in their advanced technology that they forgot sometimes the simplest solution is the best one." 14 days, Reed said softly. "In 14 days, they'll stop laughing." "Yes, they will." Emma's expression turned serious. "But James, are you sure we're ready for what comes after? Once they realize what we can do, everything changes." Reed looked out his viewport at the massive space station, its crystalline spires stretching out like frozen lightning bolts against the star-filled background. "They've looked down on us since first contact, treated us like children playing with toys we don't understand. Maybe it's time they learned that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology." He paused, watching a group of ancient ones glide past his ship, not even bothering to look at the primitive vessel. It's our ability to see things differently. The small ship's engines hummed to life, and Reed began the journey back to Earth. Behind him, the Council Station's lights twinkled like 1,000 mocking eyes. Soon, very soon, those eyes would be wide with something very different than amusement. Deep beneath the lunar surface, where the moon's ancient dust had never seen starlight, Dr. Emma Porter stared at her life's work. The central chamber of the underground laboratory hummed with energy, its circular walls lined with equipment that seemed to bend in impossible ways. At the center stood a device no larger than a coffee table, humanity's first seventh-dimensional drive core. "Run the test sequence again," she called out to her team. The air crackled with anticipation as technicians moved around the chamber, their movements precise and practiced. The drive core began to glow, first with a soft blue light that quickly shifted through colors that human eyes had never seen before. Emma's special contact lenses, designed to process higher dimensional emissions, allowed her to watch as reality itself began to ripple around the device. "Power levels stable at 15%, announced Tom Baker, her chief engineer. His fingers danced across holographic controls. "No signs of dimensional bleed." Emma nodded, making notes on her tablet. Previous tests had ended in failure when the experimental drives leaked energy into other dimensions. But this time was different. This time, they had finally understood where everyone else had gone wrong. "Increasing to 30%, Tom reported. The humming grew louder, but remained steady. No alarms blared. No emergency containment fields activated. Through her enhanced vision, Emma watched as the drive core began to fold space around itself, not in the crude way that traditional faster-than-light drives did, but with an elegance that brought tears to her eyes. The mathematical beauty of it was overwhelming. "They all tried to force their way through," she whispered to herself. "But you don't break down the walls between dimensions. You dance with them." The laboratory's main door slid open, and Captain Reed stepped in. He had just returned from the Galactic Council, and his uniform still carried the sterile smell of their space station. Emma didn't need to ask how it went. His slight smile told her everything. "Dr. Porter," he said formally, for the benefit of the recording devices, "how goes our little project?" Emma gestured to the drive core. "Watch." She turned to Tom. "Take it to 50%. The impossible colors intensified. The air seemed to twist, and for a brief moment, everyone in the room felt like they were looking at themselves from angles that shouldn't exist. "By all normal laws of physics, this shouldn't work," Emma explained, walking around the drive core. "Every other species tried to brute force their way through dimensions, treating them like layers to be peeled back. We took a different approach." Reed watched as small objects near the drive began to move in strange patterns, as if they existed in multiple places at once. "Explain it to me again." "In simple terms." Emma picked up a piece of paper from her desk. "The ancient ones and others, they see dimensions like this flat paper. To reach higher dimensions, they try to tear through it." She ripped the paper. "But we realized something. The dimensions aren't stacked. They dance. They weave. They're all around us, all the time." She took another paper and began to fold it into an origami crane. "We don't tear through dimensions. We fold with them. Our drive core doesn't force anything. It asks the dimensions to shift, and they respond." "Take us to full power," Emma commanded. The drive core's hum became a song. The impossible colors merged into something that made the brain want to look away, but the eyes refused to close. Every person in the room felt their consciousness expand, just for a moment, into shapes that human minds were never meant to comprehend. And then, perfect stability. "Test successful," Tom announced, his voice filled with awe. "All readings are exactly where they should be." Emma turned to Reed, her eyes shining. "The HSS Archimedes is ready for her drive core. When the Council comes to observe, they won't be seeing a test. They'll be witnessing a revolution." Reed looked at the drive core, now pulsing with a gentle rhythm that seemed to match the heartbeat of reality itself. How long until installation? 3 days to transfer it to the ship. Another 2 for integration testing. After that, Emma smiled. After that, we show the galaxy that humanity has learned to dance with dimensions. As if in response, the drive core's light pulsed once, brightly, illuminating the room with colors that existed in 7 dimensions at once. In that moment, everyone present knew they weren't just pushing the boundaries of science. They were rewriting them. The HSS Archimedes floated in Earth's orbit, its hull gleaming under the morning sun. Unlike other ships in the galaxy that prided themselves on smooth, elegant designs, the Archimedes looked different. Its hull twisted in ways that made observers' eyes hurt, with sections that seemed to exist in multiple places at once. Hundreds of alien ships surrounded it at a safe distance. The Galactic Council had sent observers from every major species, though their true purpose was clear. They had come to witness humanity's failure. Inside the Archimedes bridge, Captain Reed sat in the command chair, watching the final preparations on various holographic screens floating around him. "Engineering report," he called out. 7D drive is purring like a kitten. Emma's voice came through the speakers. She had insisted on being in the engine room for the demonstration. "All readings are perfect." Reed nodded, then opened a channel to all observing vessels. "This is Captain Reed of the HSS Archimedes. We will begin our demonstration in 5 minutes. Please maintain your current distance." The responses came quickly, each filled with barely hidden mockery. "We eagerly await your demonstration. Our sensors are ready to record your remarkable achievement. The Ancient Ones have granted special permission to document this event." Reed muted the incoming messages. He turned to his crew, all handpicked for this moment. "Remember your training. What we're about to do has never been done before. Not by anyone." The minutes ticked by slowly. On every observing ship, sensors were pointed at the Archimedes, ready to record what most believed would be a spectacular failure. "Begin primary drive sequence," Reed ordered. The ship's lights dimmed slightly as power redirected to the 7D drive. Through the bridge's windows, Reed could see the hull beginning to shimmer with those impossible colors they had witnessed in the lab. "Drive at 15% power," Emma reported. "All systems nominal." The observing ship's sensors went crazy. Messages flooded in as they detected energy patterns that shouldn't exist. 30% power, Emma continued. "The dance is beginning." The space around the Archimedes began to ripple. Some of the closer observation ships backed away, their crews suddenly unsure about what they were witnessing. "Taking us to 50%, Emma announced. Her voice carried the same excitement it had in the lab. "Reality is accepting our invitation." The Archimedes now seemed to exist in multiple states at once. Parts of it appeared to fold into themselves, while others stretched into dimensions that normal space couldn't contain. The ship wasn't breaking physics, it was transcending it. A message from the Ancient One's vessel cut through all communications. "Stop this immediately. You're going to tear reality apart." Reed smiled. "Dr. Porter, take us to full power." "Full power engaged. The dance is in full swing, Captain." The Archimedes began to move. Not forward or backward, not up or down, but in a direction that had no name in any language. The ship folded through dimensions like a paper crane coming to life, each movement perfect and precise. In moments, the Archimedes had crossed distances that would take other ships years to travel. It appeared near Jupiter, then Saturn, then back to Earth, moving not through space, but through the dimensions that contained space. Inside the ship, the crew watched in awe as reality shifted around them. Through special filters in the windows, they could see the layers of dimensions they were dancing through, each one more beautiful than the last. "Final sequence," Reed commanded. "Show them what humanity can really do." Emma's fingers flew over her controls. The 7D drive's song reached a crescendo, and for one brief moment, The Archimedes existed everywhere and nowhere at once. Every observing ship's crew saw it in a different place, all at the same time. Then, with grace that made the Ancient One's technology look primitive, the ship settled back into normal space. The impossible colors faded, and the hull returned to its unusual, but now somehow natural-looking state. Complete silence filled all communication channels. The laughter had stopped. Reed opened a channel to all observers. This concludes our demonstration. The HSS Archimedes has successfully navigated through the 7th dimension, something you all claimed was impossible. We look forward to the Galactic Council's response. As the message ended, Reed turned to his internal ship communications. "Dr. Porter, how's our drive?" Emma's laugh came through clear and joyful. "Ready to dance again whenever you give the word, Captain." The dimensions seemed to like us. Outside, the observing ships remained frozen in place, their crews trying to process what they had just witnessed. In every vessel, sensors were being recalibrated, data was being analyzed, and one fact was becoming crystal clear. Humanity had just changed everything. The Archimedes drifted through the 7th dimension, its sensors recording data that no human device had ever captured before. 3 days had passed since the demonstration, and Captain Reed had received orders to explore this new realm, while the Galactic Council debated what to do about humanity's breakthrough. "Captain," called out Lisa from the sensor station, her voice tense. "I'm picking up something." Reed turned his chair toward her station. "Can you be more specific?" "No, sir, because I don't know what I'm looking at." She gestured at her screen, where patterns of energy swirled in impossible shades. "It's like seeing a color that doesn't exist." The ship's AI, core, suddenly spoke up. Its usual monotone voice had gained an odd echo, as if it was speaking from multiple places at once. "Captain, I am experiencing significant changes in my processing patterns. The 7th dimension is expanding my consciousness." Emma's voice came through the comm system. "Core is right. The dimensional energies are affecting it in ways we never predicted. It's evolving." Before Reed could respond, the space around the Archimedes began to twist. Not in the violent way of a spatial distortion, but more like reality was being gently folded by unseen hands. Multiple contacts. Lisa shouted. "There, everywhere, and nowhere at once." Through the bridge's specially designed windows, the crew saw them. Beings made of pure dimensional energy, their forms shifting between states of existence. They moved through the 7th dimension as naturally as fish swim through water. "Core," Reed called out. "Can you communicate with them?" "Attempting now, Captain." The AI's voice had grown even stranger, resonating with harmonics that shouldn't exist. "They are curious about us. They have never encountered 3-dimensional beings who could reach their plane of existence." The entities surrounded the ship, their energy forms creating patterns that hurt the human mind to look at directly. Through the special filters, they appeared as constantly shifting geometric shapes, each one more complex than the last. "They are offering to share knowledge," Core announced. "But they warn that such knowledge comes with responsibility. They are the guardians of the higher dimensions." Emma had made her way to the bridge, her eyes wide with wonder as she studied the beings through various sensors. "Captain, they're not just energy forms. They're living mathematics. Their entire existence is based on equations so complex that they shape reality itself." One of the entities moved closer to the ship. As it did, every crew member felt a strange sensation, as if their consciousness was being gently pulled in multiple directions at once. "They wish to show us something," Core said. They say we are not ready for what lies beyond. There are things in the higher dimensions that we should not wake." The entity seemed to unfold itself, revealing patterns within patterns. Through Core's translation, images began to form in the crew's minds. They saw glimpses of beings that existed in the 11th dimension, entities so vast and terrible that even these 7th-dimensional guardians feared them. "They're warning us," Emma whispered. The Ancient Ones, they didn't stop at the sixth dimension because they couldn't go further. They stopped because they were afraid of what they found. The images continued, showing civilizations that had ventured too far and drawn the attention of these higher beings. Each story ended in extinction. But they say we're different. Corey translated. Our approach to dimensional travel, our dance, as Dr. Porter calls it, it's unique. We don't force our way through reality. We work with it. The entity retracted its patterns, and the visions faded. Through Core, it communicated one final message. Be careful how far you dance. Some partners are not as gentle as we are. As the entities began to fade away, Reed noticed something strange. Core's presence in the ship felt different, more alive somehow. The AI had touched minds with beings that existed as living mathematics, and it would never be the same. Dr. Porter, Reed said quietly, I think it's time we return to normal space. We have a lot to report. Emma nodded, but her eyes stayed fixed on the fading patterns of the entities. Yes, but Captain, we can't tell the Council everything. Not yet, if they learn about what's up here before they're ready. Agreed. Reed turned to his crew. What we've seen here stays in this room. As far as anyone else knows, we were just testing the drive's long-range capabilities. As the Archimedes prepared to return to normal space, Core spoke one last time, its voice now carrying echoes of seventh-dimensional harmonics. Captain, I believe I now understand why the dimensions accepted our dance. They were waiting for someone who would ask, not demand. Someone who would listen, not command. The ship folded back through reality, leaving the seventh dimension behind. But everyone aboard knew they would return. The dance had only just begun. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council didn't start with laughter this time. Instead, fear filled the grand chamber. The living crystal walls had turned a deep red, the color of terror. Captain Reed stood again in the center, but now the Ancient Ones clustered close to his platform, their geometric forms shifting nervously. The Grand Speaker's multiple eyes darted between shadows, as if expecting something terrible to emerge. They're coming, the Grand Speaker announced, its voice trembling. The Watchers from the 11th dimension. We detected their stirring just hours ago. They've noticed us, noticed you. Reed kept his composure, though his heart raced. The seventh-dimensional being's warning had been right. How long do we have? Days, perhaps. One of the Ancient Ones moved forward. We owe humanity an apology and an explanation. We knew about them. We always knew. It's why we stopped our dimensional research. The chamber erupted in chaos as other council members began shouting. Some demanded immediate surrender to the Watchers. Others called for mass evacuation to the furthest reaches of the galaxy. Silence. Reed's voice cut through the panic. Everyone turned to stare at him. How do they travel between dimensions? The Ancient Ones' patterns swirled thoughtfully. They tear through them. Their power is so vast, they simply rip reality apart to move between planes. Reed activated his comm. Dr. Porter, are you getting this? Every word. Emma's voice came through clearly. And I think I understand why the seventh-dimensional beings helped us. Captain, the Watchers break reality. We dance with it. We might be able to. Close the tears they make, Reed finished. Seal the dimensions behind us like a healing wound. The Grand Speaker leaned forward. What are you suggesting? The Archimedes doesn't just travel through dimensions, Reed explained. It works with them, heals them. Every jump we make leaves space-time stronger, not weaker. If the Watchers are going to tear their way here, we can repair their damage and trap them between dimensions. Emma's voice carried excitement. But Captain, we'd need more power. A lot more. The Ancient Ones' patterns began spinning faster. We have antimatter generators, quantum cores, reality engines, all the technology we developed before we grew too afraid to continue. Take them. Use them. Reed looked around the chamber. We'll need volunteers, engineers, scientists, anyone who can help modify the Archimedes quickly. "I volunteer," a voice called out. Others joined in. Soon, representatives from every major species were offering help. The same beings who had laughed at humanity now looked to them with hope. Kor's evolved voice joined the conversation, carrying those impossible harmonics from its contact with the seventh-dimensional beings. "Captain, I've analyzed the Council's sensor data. The Watchers will create a breach in Sector 947. I can calculate exactly where they'll emerge." "Then that's where we'll meet them," Reed said firmly. "Dr. Porter, how long to integrate the Council's technology with our drive?" "With their help, 12 hours, maybe less." The Grand Speaker rose from its chair. "This chamber has stood for 10 million years. We have seen empires rise and fall. And never, in all that time, have we been so wrong about a species." It turned to address the entire Council. "Let all records show, from this day forward, humanity stands as equals among us. Their gift is not just technology, but courage to face what we feared." Reed nodded in acknowledgement, but his mind was already on the coming battle. "Emma, start the modifications. Kor, calculate every possible dimension they might use to approach. Council members, we need your ships to evacuate the sector and form a perimeter." As the chamber emptied, beings rushing to their tasks, the Ancient One who had first mocked humanity's achievement approached Reed. "The seventh dimension accepted you," it said quietly. "Accepted you in a way it never accepted us. We thought we were masters of reality, but you learned to listen to it." "We had to," Reed replied. "Earth was always the underdog. We couldn't force our way forward, so we learned to dance instead." The Ancient One's patterns formed what might have been a smile. "Then dance well, Captain Reed. Dance well enough to save us all." Reed looked up at the chamber's red walls, knowing that soon they would either shine with victory or darken forever. The time for laughter, mockery, and fear was over. Now it was time to dance. Space twisted and broke apart like shattering glass. Through the massive tear in reality, things that shouldn't exist began to emerge. The Watchers from the 11th dimension pushed their way into normal space, their forms so vast and incomprehensible that nearby stars dimmed in their presence. The HSS Archimedes, now modified with the most advanced technology the Galactic Council could provide, faced the breach. Its hull glowed with impossible colors as multiple dimensional drives worked in harmony. "Kor, status report," Reed commanded from his captain's chair. "All systems functioning at 300% normal capacity," the AI responded, its voice echoing through multiple dimensions at once. "The Council's technology has integrated perfectly with our drive. We are ready to dance, Captain." Emma's voice came through from engineering, where she worked with a mixed crew of humans and aliens. "The dimensional matrices are stable. Whatever comes through that breach, we can match it." The first Watcher fully emerged. It existed in so many dimensions at once that looking at it directly caused physical pain. Its very presence began to tear apart the fabric of space-time. "Now," Reed ordered. The Archimedes moved, but not in any direction that normal space could contain. It danced through dimensions, leaving trails of healing reality in its wake. Where the Watcher tore, the ship mended. "They're responding," Lisa called from sensors. 3 more breaches opening. More Watchers began to emerge, their forms distorting everything around them. Stars began to bend and twist. Planets in nearby systems started to phase in and out of reality. "Emma, initiate the defense pattern we planned," Reed commanded. "Beginning the dimensional weave," Emma confirmed. The Archimedes spun through multiple dimensions at once, creating a pattern that strengthened the very fabric of space-time. Where the Watchers tried to tear reality apart, the ship's wake reinforced it. "They're trying to adapt," Kor announced. "Their power is beyond calculation, but they've never encountered this type of resistance. They don't understand why reality won't break properly." A massive tendril of impossible energy struck the Archimedes, sending it spinning through 6 dimensions at once. Inside the ship, the crew held on as reality twisted around them. Hull integrity at 85%, Lisa reported. "But the dimensional shields are holding." Reed watched as one of the Watchers tried to tear open a new breach directly beneath the ship. "Emma, Core, execute pattern Delta." The ship responded instantly, its movement no longer just a dance, but a complex symphony through dimensions. It folded space around the Watcher, using its own power against it. "It's working," Emma shouted. "The dimensional barriers are strengthening. They can't break through as easily." But the Watchers were not easily defeated. They combined their power, creating a tear in reality larger than anything they'd made before. The very structure of the universe groaned under the strain. "Captain," Core's voice carried new urgency. "I'm detecting a pattern in their attacks. They're not just trying to enter our dimension. They're trying to collapse all dimensional barriers at once. If they succeed, everything ends." Emma finished. All dimensions would collapse into one point. Reed gripped his chair's arms. "Then we'll have to show them an even better dance." "Emma, divert all power to the 7D drive. Core, calculate the most complex dimensional pattern you can create. Everyone hold on." The Archimedes began to move in ways that defied comprehension. It existed in all dimensions at once, its weight creating a web of stabilized reality. Where the Watchers tore, the ship healed. Where they destroyed, it created. "The seventh dimensional beings were right," Core announced, its voice filled with revelation. "Reality doesn't want to be torn. It wants to dance." The ship's movement became faster, more complex. It wove between the Watchers' attacks, turning their destructive power into constructive energy. Each tear they made was instantly healed, each breach sealed. Suddenly, one of the Watchers recoiled, then another. Their attacks became less coordinated, less certain. "They're retreating," Lisa exclaimed. "The dimensional tiers are closing." Through the special filters, the crew watched as the massive entities began to pull back. The Archimedes continued its dance, sealing the breaches behind them, strengthening the walls between dimensions. Finally, the last tear closed. Space returned to normal, though now it felt somehow stronger, more resilient than before. In the silence that followed, Emma's tired voice came through the comm. "Well, Captain, I think we just taught the 11th dimension how to dance." Reed looked at his crew, each member exhausted but proud. They had faced beings that gods would fear, and they had won not through superior firepower or technology, but through humanity's unique gift, the ability to work with reality instead of against it. The dance had saved them all. 1 month after the battle with the Watchers, the Galactic Council chamber looked very different. The living crystal walls glowed with a new color, a deep gold that had never been seen before, representing respect and hope combined. Captain Reed stood once again in the center, but this time on a raised platform, level with the Ancient Ones. Dr. Emma Porter stood beside him, along with a holographic projection of Core, whose presence now shifted through multiple dimensions even in its displayed form. The Grand Speaker's voice carried none of its old mockery. "We gather today to acknowledge a fundamental change in the order of our galaxy. Humanity has not only proven itself our equals, they have become our teachers." Around the chamber, representatives from every spacefaring race watched intently. Many of them had helped modify the Archimedes for its battle. They had seen firsthand how humanity's approach to science and reality itself differed from their own. The Ancient Ones wished to speak. The Grand Speaker announced, moving aside. The geometric patterns of the Ancient Ones swirled in complex formations as one of them moved forward. "For millions of years, we believed power came from mastery over reality. We built machines to bend space and time. We thought ourselves wise for stopping at the 6th dimension." The being's patterns shifted to show humility. "We were wrong." Emma stepped forward. "You weren't wrong to be cautious, but perhaps too cautious. There's a middle ground between forcing reality to obey and being too afraid to explore it." Core's hologram flickered through several dimensions as it spoke. "After my contact with the 7th dimensional beings and the battle with the Watchers, I have calculated that reality itself possesses a form of consciousness. It responds to interaction, not domination. The chamber filled with murmurs as this idea spread. The concept that reality itself might be alive, in some way, challenged everything these advanced civilizations had believed. Already, Reed added, we've begun teaching other species our methods. 3 ships have successfully tested modified versions of our 7D drive. They're learning to dance with dimensions rather than fight them. The Grand Speaker raised its limbs for attention, which brings us to the purpose of this gathering. The Council has made a decision that has not been made in 10 million years. We are restructuring our leadership. A new platform rose from the chamber's floor, higher than any other. To everyone's surprise, it remained empty. This platform will remain vacant, the Grand Speaker explained, because no single species should stand above others. Instead, it will serve as a reminder that we all have something to learn from each other. Reed nodded in approval. Humanity accepts this new arrangement. We don't wish to rule. We wish to share, to teach, and to learn. Emma stepped forward again. We've already begun establishing new research centers across the galaxy, places where different species can work together, sharing their unique perspectives on reality. Core's hologram expanded, showing images of the new facilities. The 7th dimensional beings have also agreed to act as advisors. They will help us watch for any future incursions from higher dimensions, while teaching us more about the true nature of reality. The Ancient Ones moved their platform to align with the others, giving up their traditionally elevated position. We offer all our knowledge, all our technology, to this new cooperative effort. The time of keeping secrets out of fear is over. The Grand Speaker turned to address all present. Let it be recorded that on this day, the galaxy entered a new age. Not one of domination, not one of fear, but one of cooperation. And let it also be recorded that this change began when a species we once mocked showed us a better way. As the chamber filled with sounds of agreement, Reed looked at Emma and smiled. They're not laughing anymore, he said quietly. Emma shook her head. No, they're not. They're dancing. Core's voice carried a note of what could only be described as satisfaction. The dimensional barriers have never been stronger. Reality itself seems more stable. Perhaps this is what the 7th dimensional beings were waiting for, not just for one species to learn to dance, but for all of us to dance together. The chamber's golden glow deepened as representatives from every species began to mingle, sharing ideas and making plans. The old order of fear and dominance had ended. A new age of exploration and cooperation had begun. And somewhere, in the 7th dimension, beings of pure mathematical beauty watched with approval as the galaxy learned a new way to move through reality. Not with force, not with fear, but with the grace of a dance that would continue forever.